Welcome all junior employees, assistant to the detectives, and assistant detectives to the overviews of the Anti-Strangling Task Force. This is the overview for Rogue Squadron. It's the second last overview, and in some ways this is the most difficult overview because the very nature of Rogue Squadron is that they are not restricted or don't have any limitations on any particular thing or any particular theory, I should say, that they choose to investigate. Now, this is the most tactical team out of all the various teams that we have, and the reason for this is Rogue Squadron is a dynamic, maneuverable team that is able to pick up the pieces of anything that I may have overlooked or anything the task force ends up unearthing and critical concepts that perhaps end up needing specific attention. But above all of this, it's really what I call macro theories that this team will be investigating. And it's theories or concepts that may have a overarching role or underlying current to the primary story. Now, I need to provide some guidance to you guys because just telling you to do whatever you want, I mean, you're welcome to do that. Again, you're the Rogue Squadron. You can do whatever the hell you like, guys, but I think it's handy for me to give you some guidance, and the best way for me to provide you with that guidance is to detail the nature of the mystery, which I haven't done so far in any of the other task force overviews or in the YouTube videos, and this is going to be a handy segment for all the task force members to listen to and to understand the game. We're ultimately playing a game here. The creators have created a game and we're playing the game, and understanding that game and understanding the nature of the mystery is going to help you and assist you in providing guidance as to what specifically you're looking for. Now, one term that I've used throughout a number of my videos so far is how motif forms the building blocks of the story of the Scranton Strangler. And I've used that term very specifically. The reason being is the game that we're playing over the course of 9 seasons is a massive game of Mad Libs. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, Mad Libs is a phrase template game where one player prompts the other players to fill in the gaps with various nouns, verbs, before they string the whole story together and provide what, usually should end up being a funny or ridiculous story. Now, there are at least 2 examples of this happening in the show. In the episode 222, Casino Night in the Deleted Scenes, Michael calls an office meeting for the staff to help him to finish a game of Mad Libs.
Apparently, Michael has come up with a Dunder Mifflin Mad Lib, and he's making us play it with him. We are so happy. No, I'd like to choose a different adjective.
How about a location?
The planet Capricorn.
Where the hell is that?
It's from Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, all right.
I am going back to my desk.
No, not until you give me an adjective.
Annoying.
We already have that, so...
Frustrating?
No, Toby, damn it, come on. We already have that. I need something fun. Something like fat or smelly or pukey. Pukey. Pukey's good. Okay. Pukey. Now I need a noun.
Ass.
Good. Thank you, Phyllis. That wasn't so hard. All right, here we go. Office Depot is an annoying store. One day, Creed went there to buy paper, and he ran into irritating Cylons.
Yeah, get him, Creed.
One of them was named Michael Scott, and he was an... Oh, damn it. Okay. We're starting over.
The other more well-known example is when Angela is with Andy and they're sitting in the kitchen and they're also playing a game of Mad Libs.
Okay. Adjective.
Tall. No, nice.
Good one. Okay. You ready? Mm-hmm. The tall man entered the nice building to visit a very nice man. Sit down, Mr. Smith. Could I interest you in any good cat food.
Now, the fact that we have repetition, we see this game being played at least twice, and there may be another one, but these are just the two that have come to my mind, right? This ultimately forms a motif. When we have repetition, it forms a motif. And in this particular example, this motif isn't so much a building block of the Scranton Strangler story, as opposed to being a message to us that the nature of this mystery, the nature of the game we're playing, is one massive game of Mad Libs. And ultimately, the writers and the creators are going to provide us with the building blocks, and we're going to string them together into creating a narrative that fits and that makes sense. Now that we know that, and that this is the nature of the game we're playing, in some ways, guys, you can now look at each particular task force team as specializing in certain particular types of building blocks. We can look at the extraterrestrial time-traveling task force as responsible for all the building blocks related to time travel. We can look at the Bob Kazamakis sex investigation squad as the team responsible for finding all the sex-related building blocks. Great Scott Film Forensics are the building blocks related to movies. So in this sense, and keeping that in mind, Rogue Squadron is responsible for finding building blocks that are uncategorized and building blocks that perhaps may have been overlooked. They could also be building blocks that suggest another series of events, or perhaps building blocks that have a serious impact on the order of the building blocks that we have found so far. So to provide a couple of examples of, what I would call far out theories, but, they don't necessarily have no backing to them, but let's just say they have maybe a lighter evidence file than perhaps some of the other building blocks. One example of this is that the entire show is actually happening in Creed's mind, that Creed is perhaps in a mental institution, he is, mentally unsound, and, the Office characters and the documentary and everything that surrounds this mystery is just going on in his head. Now, one scene that could support this particular theory is in season 9 episode 18, the promos. In the deleted scenes, we have like a series of talking heads, and when Creed pops up, he goes right up into the camera and he says, "Hello, is anybody there?"
Hello?
Right, now I haven't completely worked out the meaning of that, and just the nature of it again inspires suspicion within me that there's significance to that moment. But if we use that moment perhaps to sort of reinforce this possible theory that the whole show is going on in Creed's head, right, I would say that that's a worthy theory worth of investigation. He tells us that he was in a band in the 60s and he obviously did a lot of drugs, and perhaps this is just a trip that never ended for Creed.
Back in the 60s, I was with the Grassroots. We toured with Janis Joplin, The Doors, Cream. We had a lot of fun. Now I do quality assurance for a paper company. As you can imagine, drugs played a part. We still do. My work calls last about 90 seconds, and that's about as long as I can concentrate.
He got stuck in some LSD trip, right, and he never broke out of it, and all of this is just the slow deterioration of his mind. Now, that deleted scene in the promos, in isolation, I would say, is not strong enough by itself to support this theory, or for us to consider it a solid building block in this game of Mad Libs that we're playing. So part of the challenge for this task force is to solidify that building block, right? If Rogue Squadron believes they're onto a particular theory, that building block needs to be solidified, then we will accept it into this game of Mad Libs, and then we will fit that into the story. And obviously supporting material, we're talking about things like, symbolism, motif, theme, scripting, dialogue, camera angles, story arcs. I mean, it's the whole gamut of tools that the creators use to communicate meaning. So that solidification can come from all sources, but we do really need to have a convincing narrative that would back, or convincing material that would back the solidity of that building block. Now, I also want to mention, guys, that this doesn't necessarily mean that all theories are competing with each other. Right, and if you think of the game of Mad Libs, right, we just have to find a spot to fit it in. So in the example of everything happening in Creed's mind, we could almost look at that as the macro theory. It doesn't discount the story at hand or anything else that we've found. We would simply arrange those blocks in a manner that the story can be strung together and makes sense. Another more of a left field theory that I've mentioned in a previous video is perhaps The Office is symbolic of being a massive sex cult. Now, I know we have the Bob Kazamakis sex investigation squad that are investigating the relationships and various content of a sexual nature, but I believe, again, because this is a macro theory, it would also fit into Rogue Squadron's scope. Right, and I'm not going to go into any examples today about that because that'd take me a little bit longer and this episode would go over time. But again, the role of Rogue Squadron in that particular case would be to solidify that particular building block. The task force would accept it, and then we would include that in our massive game of Mad Libs that we're playing. Another theory that a few fans have mentioned is perhaps The Office is a reality TV show. Something similar, let's say, to The Apprentice or Big Brother. And I think there's definitely some credence to this theory. And again, I want to reiterate a point here around that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a competing theory. I mean, we can just as easily include this element into that it's all happening in Creed's mind. Just because they may not seem like they're the same theory, or they may seem at face value like they're opposed to each other, it's not really the case. We can quite easily fit all of those things, into a linear or a narrative that makes sense. Another theory is that this is like a alien fishbowl situation. Perhaps everybody in the office has been abducted by aliens, and I've mentioned that we have this concept of a god bug and some sort of an alien being, a small guy that can, in Kevin's example, a little man inside him that's controlling him with controls. Perhaps everybody in the office has been abducted. They're in a massive fishbowl scenario where aliens, and again, you can call this ridiculous, but I really want Rogue Squadron to have no limitations in their theories. I want them to be free and to investigate the things that may not be so obvious. But to continue with a theory, perhaps it's a fishbowl scenario. It's like an experiment the aliens are playing out. Perhaps it also links into a Matrix type scenario where they've got them all plugged into machines and this is all happening in their heads, and it's all happening for the entertainment of aliens. And again, nothing stops us from including such a wild theory into a narrative that makes sense and fitting into this game of Mad Libs that we're playing. But again, the challenge for this particular team is to ensure that those particular building blocks, as wild as they may be, as long as they can be substantiated through symbolism, motif, theme, narrative, scripting, acting, dialogue, so on and so forth, as long as it can be solidified, it will be included as one of our building blocks as we finalize the story of the Scranton Strangler. So the type of people that I'd encourage to join this particular task force is people that are mega creative, people that have those crazy theories. If you've got some ridiculously wild theories, I want to hear them. Like Jo Bennet says, she likes a little bit of crazy, and so do I. I think it'll make for a more interesting story, right? But But again, and I have to reiterate, we want solidity in those building blocks. I also want to reiterate once more that it may seem at the surface like they're competing, but like with any game of Mad Libs, we're just going to fit it in, guys. Nothing stops us from making a story that makes sense. Now, again, the nature of this particular task force is really a nature of freedom, and as such, the other task force overviews, I've provided examples of things I've already investigated, right, and things that I'm very confident have a very central role to this mystery. The examples I've given in this video, I've really looked for the most ridiculous examples I could think of. And some of them, part of them were mine. Some of them were things that other fans have put on Reddit and online, right? I don't want to taint this task force with my biases, because I already have biases built up over my 4 years of investigating the task force. And as such, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter overview because of that. I don't want to taint your thought process. I want you guys to come to the table to bring your own wild theories, to investigate whatever you want. You are the Rogue Squadron. Right, you guys are the renegades. The crazier it is, the more entertaining it's gonna be, as long as we can somehow substantiate those claims through the techniques used by the creators of the show. So this is the shortest overview out of the lot, guys. However, you've got a very unique task, and as such, your assignment is as follows. Find the building blocks of a nature that are not being investigated. Go down every rabbit hole. Find us the crazy material that the other task forces are not focused on. You will not be insubordinate, nor will you foment insurrection. So if you're someone who has crazy theories and you think you can justify them, if you're a rogue renegade who likes to roam free without retribution and inhibition, then this is the team for you. Welcome to the Anti-Strangling Task Force.